Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Does Metal Have Soul podcast episode. I'm one of your hosts, Levi Clay, and
I am Melissa Kelly. Hello. Ooh.
it's happened.
Hooray.
We've been talking about doing this for literally years now.
2 years.
Is it two?
It's been 2
Oh,
years.
yeah.
There was like 6 month period of being like, shall we? But you were still doing guitar solos though.
Yeah, and that elephant in the room should probably be addressed. I am of Levi Clay of the Guitar Souls podcast. The Guitar Souls as a podcast is no more. It has been no more for a fairly long time now. Not because Mike and I fell out or anything, just, scheduling, life gets in the way. Mike is a dad now. It was always hard.
He had a baby.
Yeah. It was always hard to reliably film content as is. And it just got harder and harder as life went along. Now Mike is a dad. It's even harder to find him having any time. I missed doing a podcast, so I wanted to come back to podcasting. And I am here, of course, as I say, with Melissa Kelly. Now, Melissa is my partner, both romantically, but also...
Why would you say?
Well, it's true.
Yeah, it's like you're describing me after my dead body's been found later down
Sure.
the line. Just like we were romantically involved, but I never hit her or pushed her.
Well, no, this is technically... Technically, I'm just rehearsing your eulogy here. My partner in that sense, but also my musical muse, if you like.
Aww.
Well, we gig together.
That's true.
I have been the guitarist for her band for a fairly long time now. And I also play piano for Mel on duo gigs. I play the piano and Mel plays guitar and sings. And I enjoy it very much. It sort of reinvigorated my passion for going out and playing, which is always nice. On top of that, we are recording music.
We are. It's so exciting.
Yeah, there's a new single dropping on the 14th of February.
12th
of February. Keep your eyes peeled for that. There's also music on Melissa's Spotify page, so do go and check out Melissa Kelly's Spotify. If you are only checking this out because of me, you should stay for Mel, because she's the creative one. I'm the businessy person. Yeah, you want to do a similar thing for me? Who am I?
Levi Clay is many things. He's a multi-instrumentalist. Fancy. You're a transcriber. So I say this to a lot of people and people are like, nah, but genuinely, Levi Clay is one of the people that I've met who speaks musical theory like it were a full language, but fluently. Like not just in he roughly knows what he's doing if he's in a band situation, how to be a musical director, but he actually transcribes lots of different things from lots of different artists. He creates books. You do transcribing for artists who are looking to create their own books, and some big artists.
Yeah.
In country and in metal.
Yeah, and jazz.
Those two things came together in a very strange way. But yeah, you do a lot of like the performance stuff with me. You also, I really enjoyed Guitar Souls, so I feel like I have usurped Mike, but also I'm like, haha, Mike, you snooze, you lose, because I wanted to do it. But of course, I couldn't do anything to take Mike out. That would be unfair. And possibly illegal. So yeah, you do many things and you're very good at all of them. It's kind of sickening. If I didn't like you / love you, I would spread rumours about you.
That seems fair.
Have I missed anything?
Well, I have a big YouTube channel.
Oh yeah. Sorry. So Levi has his YouTube channel.
I don't really feel the need to plug that. What I will plug is I did have a new book come out just a couple of days ago, which is my compilation book of the guided practice routines, scales, chords, and arpeggios. So if you want to go and check that on Amazon, it would be very much appreciated. Anyway, let's talk about the format. Does Metal Have Soul? The idea behind Does Metal Have Soul, and we have this, for anyone watching the podcast, we have this visual cue in the back. We've got...
Hooray!
We have a big board of the logo.
That we've had for a year and a half.
The idea here was, of course, for anyone that's followed Melissa's channel, she does reaction videos to a lot of metal content. And when I met Melissa, she had very limited knowledge of metal.
No knowledge. Zero knowledge.
Yeah. Melissa is a professional soul singer, so I always thought that it would be fun to have a professional soul singer listen to and learn about metal. And the idea of the podcast was we would do it kind of in tandem with the reaction videos that you were making.
Yeah.
But now you've done the reaction videos for so long that Mel knows more about modern metal than I do.
Get it up, yeah. That's correct.
Yeah.
I'll be doing things like I'll name a band that I'm doing, but I'll be doing like a re-listen, and Levi will be like, who's that?
Yeah. But the knowledge is there of the history of metal. And that was actually the idea. So the idea was we looked at the history and development of heavy metal music from the early years, and we're going to date that to like 1970, and listening to bands and talking about bands through the development of metal, so we could really start to paint a vivid picture for Melisa, if you like, on where heavy metal came from and the development to what it is now. So the first episode, as I'm sure you will have noticed in the title, is focusing on Black Sabbath.
Also, I think that it's an interesting point around metal music, I guess any genre, but I came from soul music, and in soul music, one of the biggest, most important things about soul music, you know, apart from obviously things like your chops, is the authenticity of the things that you create. And I guess part of, does metal have soul? When we speak about soul, we of course know there's plenty of singers when we're speaking colloquially that are really amazing in metal. It's not about that. It's also just talking about the varying degrees of authenticity and what that means to metal music and how that's evolved from sort of feral carnage of Black Sabbath through to the mathematical behaviour of some of the new metal artists, you know?
Yeah. And actually, one other aspect that I didn't mention about Melisa is Melisa obviously is a songwriter, but Melisa has a master's degree in songwriting. I mean, yeah, this is a waste of money if ever I heard one. But what comes with that is we are dealing with somebody here who has a deep passion for not just music, but artistry in general. So you use terms like authenticity and they really mean something to you, and you can talk a lot about songwriting and you care a lot about songwriting.
Nerd!
Yeah, and lyrics and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So again, it's kind of interesting to me to listen to and talk about metal from the perspective of artistry and songwriting, because generally speaking, I'm speaking for myself, but also the many students I've taught over the years, metal musicians tend to be more focused on composition, so the writing of the music side of things, not necessarily the writing of a song. And it would be interesting, or it will be interesting for us to look through metal and see which things you think are great songs, whereas, or comparing that to things which you feel are more just compositional. That's not all we'll be doing on the Does Metal Have Soul podcast. We will also be talking about the news.
Hooray! Yes. And also, so I only just discovered these new news outlets because part of being a reaction person is that a lot of the time people are suggesting the songs to me, and I do go looking for my own songs, but equally there's not lots of knowledge around the artists. So even just in the past week of trying to find little pieces of news, I'm like, what are they talking about? What controversy is this? And what is that? So the first one I have is a quiz.
Oh, okay. You want me to...
It's a small quiz. Don't open anything yet, because it'll... Spoilers! Look away! Look only at me if you look at that screen. So, part of the news has been of late, there's been a lot of different, and I don't know if you're aware, there's been a lot of different covers happening in metal and rock over the past couple of weeks. A lot of people releasing covers of other people's songs just in the past week.
Okay.
So, of all of them, I've picked some of the more famous ones.
Okay.
But I want to tell you, of the three I'm about to tell you,
I
want you to tell me which one's the fraud, which one's the red herring, and
which one didn't really happen?
Which one didn't really happen.
Okay, I see.
Bearing in mind that the other two happened just in the past week.
Okay.
Not even week, past couple of days.
Okay.
As a release. Okay. Du-du-du. We should have some game show music. Okay.
You're editing this, so you can put that in.
Du-du-du-du-du-du. Okay, so A, Def Leppard with Benny King's Stand By Me.
Okay.
B.
Hang on.
Okay.
That sounds plausible.
Okay.
That sounds plausible.
Sure. B. Bring Me the Horizon, which I recently did on the channel, with Oasis's Wonderwall.
That doesn't have the ring of truth, but okay.
And then C. Nickelback with Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love.
That one feels left field enough that it... if you were going to make one up, I feel that you would pick a I don't want to say a better known song, but yeah, that feels left field enough that it feels legitimate to me. So I have to say Bring Me the Horizon.
Bring Me the Horizon, you think that's a red herring?
Yeah.
You are wrong.
Oh, wow. That's
bananas. So the one that I made up is actually the one that I would quite like to happen, which is Nickelback doing Addicted to Love. That's not real. That's not happening. However, Def Leppard have released a single of Stand By Me to help with the fires in California, and Bring Me the Horizon have not only released a version of Wonderwall, but they've had it signed off by Noel and Liam Gallagher, who said it's a fantastic idea. What do you think of that? What do you think of covers in metal in general?
I don't want to say that I'm here or there about them. I think when I listen to music, I'm just listening to something that sounds good or doesn't sound good. So I don't necessarily think that if a band has done a cover that that's inherently a bad thing or inherently a good thing. I can think of lots of bad metal covers, and I can think of lots of good metal covers. Don't test me on that. I mean, we're probably going to talk about, you know, Sabbath today and bands that have covered Sabbath. Lots of bands have covered Sabbath over the years because of course, and I don't think less or more of them because of it. I guess the thing that is interesting to me is when a band does a cover of a song that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to do. In the case of Bring Me the Horizon doing Wonderwall, that's absolutely a band that I would not expect to cover that song. But if I reel it back a little bit, it's a band that I could not care less about covering a song. Covering a song that if I could Men in Black, you know, the light
clicker,
thing, whatever they call that thing, if I could wipe a song from history, Wonderwall would definitely be pretty high up on that list.
Seems.
So I couldn't care less about that. Whereas Def Leppard doing Stand By Me, I like Stand By Me. We play Stand By Me live.
We do.
So,
but we do the Benny King version and not in fact the Def Leppard version, which is now a thing that exists the world.
You've got that all wrong. We did the Benny King version. Moving forward, we will do the Def Leppard version.
I haven't even listened to it, which is shocking. So I can't tell you. And to be honest, when I saw we did do Bring the Horizon recently on my channel, and I enjoyed it. I thought that lead singer's got some great stuff about his vocals. I did think they also had some pretty cool lyricism. But when I saw that, I was like, oh dear.
I guess from the perspective of artistry, because I songwriting is only something that I've become a bit more passionate about in the last 5 or 6 years. I come from that. Yeah, sure. I come from that background of composition. So writing music that sounds cool. So I'm not going to say that lyrics were never important. I have music out there with lyrics on, and the songs that I wrote the lyrics on, they mean a lot to me. And I guess I should have cared more about songwriting I should have learned that songwriting was really important to me when I wrote songs, and that I was really, passionate about and put my emotions into. When I hear bands do covers, it's kind of like when we were in Orlando last year, we went to see Joker 2. For some reason. We thought that would be a good idea.
It did seem like a good idea.
Aside from the film being terrible, all I could think while watching it, and I said this to Mel as soon as we came out, I was like, it just misses the mark because it's not a musical. It's a jukebox musical, and a jukebox musical is not the same thing as a musical. Mel and I have been to see a lot of musicals together. Just recently I took Mel down to London so she could see Wicked, but we went to see Hadestown in New York.
Oh my fucking
yeah. And when you are watching a musical with music that has been written for it, you have a situation where the person singing the song is able to sing the lyrics that best convey the way they think and feel in that moment. And when watching Joker, when the Joker comes out and sings Stevie's
For Once in My Life.
It was For Once in My Life. It's like, I don't believe for 1 second that in this moment, the best words that Joaquin Phoenix's character could use to express how he's feeling also happen to be the exact words that Stevie Wonder wrote in For Once in My Life, if Stevie wrote the lyrics for that, and he almost certainly didn't. But you know what I mean?
I think that jukebox musicals are made for people who want to go to the theatre and experience musicals, but actually don't like any musicals.
Yeah.
And whilst I don't think, like with Joker 2, like I initially when it started, I was like, I'm quite enjoying this. But yeah, some of the covers of the songs, I was like, your problem is you've got Lady Gaga, who is a fantastic vocalist. Then you've got Joaquin Phoenix, who's not a terrible singer, but he's trying to do this tortured emotional performance. And you've kind of got to go, well, they're not going to give a performance that a musical theatre performer would, because it's a jukebox musical. It's also a film, so they've got to have all these emotions. And equally, it's just like when you listen to a cover of something, you want them to either bring something totally new, or you want them to bring a completely authentic but also to the number cover of it, you know? You don't want some wishy-washy middle of the road place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't bring this up as a reason to talk about jukebox musicals. It was in relation to a metal band doing a cover of a song.
Sure.
And it's for me, it's the same thing. It's like, you know what I don't need to hear? David Draymond singing The Sound of Silence. Now, I know you've had a touchy history with this one. The Sound of Silence is a beautiful song. And Disturbed's cover of The Sound of Silence is a great recording.
Sure.
It's it's a nice rendition of that song. But I would just rather hear David Draymond talk about his life experience. You know?
That he made up.
Well, possibly. But and I think the same applies to just about any cover. So that's what I think about that.
I do think that Bring Me a Horizon were great. I did enjoy them. But I would like to hear some of that other wonderful lyricism. I told you the lyric as well. It was something along the lines, not verbatim, of I tried to drown my demons, obviously with alcohol, but they can all swim. And it was just a really well put together piece of lyricism, and I would rather hear that.
Which is much better than...
And after all...
No, I wasn't going to go with that. I was going to go with the Hollywood Undead lyric that really upset you.
Oh, Hollywood Undead can suck a bag of dicks. They really can. The lyric was, I'm not bad, but I'm made of bad things. I'm not made of ham, I'm a hamster. It was just rubbish.
That was a Bill Bailey quote.
There was a Bill Bailey quote.
Yeah, okay. All right, what else? What other news have you dug up for me? I should actually interject with some news, and it's not really news because I have no news stories, but the NAMM show has just happened for the music instrumental fans out there. And usually on a Guitar Souls episode, we would probably talk about a load of cool things that had been launched, released, gear that you might be interested in buying, but I don't care. I couldn't care less. And as I've got older, and for our American listeners, it's I couldn't care less.
Oh, that's what to do.
Yeah.
Just alienate the Americans by being like, did you know you said it wrong?
Yeah, I couldn't care less because the instruments that you play, the instruments you use to play music are not as important as the music that you make. So I have a lot of guitars, which is, I guess, another reason why I can not care about these things.
Yeah.
I have a lot of keyboards.
Check your privilege, Mabel.
I definitely saw a couple of things in the news that jumped out to me as being like, yeah, that's cool. Like Nord released the Nord Organ 3.
Oh, yeah.
But also, I don't care. This isn't going to be a place where I'm going to sit and tell you about Ibanez's newest guitar. I'm sure they released some cool things. They still haven't released the Jack Gardner signature, though. So,
boo!
And I might actually pick up a Jack Gardner signature when that inevitably happens.
Have you always been that way? Because I'll be honest, when you Mike used to do NAMM style stuff, I wouldn't listen. Because I would be like, I don't understand what's going on.
Well, there's always been an element of talking about musical instruments that has been a part of the content I make, primarily because it was, to a degree, the industry I worked in. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, telling people about new gear that comes out, because guitar instrument manufacture as a business is big business. Guitar players are constantly looking for the next thing that they need to buy. And I know that sounds like a wild thing to say, like I've got over it, because, behind you there is an Ibanez 7-string that showed up just recently. I did pick up a Hello Kitty Strat recently, and I am totally gassing for another, because I already have one Benedetto guitar. So, it's not like you ever truly beat the demons, but I acknowledge that these things that I want are just things I want. They're certainly not things that I need.
I can understand it at one point, but I certainly, when we went to Woodshed, one of the main conversations that I was expecting to happen a lot of the time was people talking about how to get as better as a guitarist. And they happened, of course they did. But an overwhelming majority of the conversations was, so have you seen this new guitar, and what pedals are you using? Yeah. And how are you getting your tone at the moment? And blah, 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 blah. And yeah.
Yeah, don't care. And that is a bad thing to say from a business perspective, because we immediately eliminate potential sponsors who make gear.
I mean, I feel like we would have more nonsense sponsors.
Yes.
Like Tunnock's tea cakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm going to try and get Tunnock's tea cakes to sponsor.
Sure. So sorry, that was my news. You continue on with your news stories.
Okay. Well, all I will say is the only reason you'll ever get me to go to NAMM is so that I might be able to potentially pump into Stevie Wonder, because I didn't know he goes all
Stevie
the
Wonder's
time.
always at NAMM. Yeah.
Oh, breaks my heart. I have to meet him. Okay.
You're running out of time.
I know. Oh God, don't tell me. So the quote from the news article is, "I'm still amazed to this day that no one outside of Birmingham can understand a word I say."
Ozzy Osbourne.
The founding members of Black Sabbath are being awarded with a Freedom of the City honour by Birmingham City Council. Ah, I really liked that. And also I was like, why has that not happened yet?
Yeah. Why has that not happened yet? I mean, obviously we're going to talk more about Sabbath today. Yeah, they're legends on the Birmingham scene. Birmingham has put out a fair amount of decent music, because you have to remember Judas Priest are from Birmingham as well.
Holy Vishnu, I didn't know that. Yeah. Also, do you not think, though, that because metal is, by a lot of people, to be fair, think it's just screaming and nonsense, do you think that they've put off giving them the freedom of the city thing, because they're like, well, metal's what's just screaming though, isn't it?
It's interesting you'd say that. I think that a lot of people do think that, but then the interesting thing about metal is it's an old genre of music. 50 years of development there. I think a lot of the music, that when people talk about metal, and it's all just screaming, they probably don't think of Black Sabbath as being that.
I certainly wouldn't have, but
it's dad rock now, isn't it?
We're talking about Birmingham City Council. How swish can they be?
I have a lot of experience of Birmingham. I've spent a lot of time.
Really?
In Birmingham, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Why were you in Birmingham?
I dated someone from Birmingham. I dated somebody who moved to Birmingham for university, and the singer from Hellcat is from Birmingham.
Oh, okay, so sure.
And what's that other bitch's name?
No, I'm kidding. I'm so kidding.
Yeah.
Tell me her name. Okay, well, I just thought that was a really sweet thing, and I also just thought, Jesus, that's taken a fair old time.
Yeah. Yeah, Black Sabbath's a weird one now, though, because in terms of, members, they just consider Ozzy and Tony to be, as long as those two are there, it's Black Sabbath, and really, Black Sabbath is a group of 4 people, and you need Bill Ward and Geezer Butler for it to be Black Sabbath, in my opinion.
I couldn't believe it when I found out that Dio was the lead singer of Black Sabbath for a wee while. I literally couldn't believe it. I was like, that's not the same band. That's a totally different band.
That's Heaven and Hell.
I see.
I just think of, Dio fronted Black Sabbath as being Heaven and Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, this one triggered me just a little bit. It triggered me in the feels, but then I was also sort of sitting and considering whether or not it was a viable thing anymore. NME are just saying, they're putting a wee article out into the world.
Yep.
You can now study a university degree in heavy metal. Activities on the course include teaching students how to growl. That's a thing that's happening.
Well, you can study higher education it gives itself, I was going to say it's a scam, but it's not. If you go and do a degree in, mechanical engineering, you've not been scammed there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you can get degrees in just about anything. I certainly remember on the podcast a long time ago, the Guitar Source podcast, talking about there was University of Texas offered a degree in Beyonce's Lemonade. Yeah, yeah. And I know you like that record, but doing a degree on an album is dumb. And doing a
dissertation on an album is marginally acceptable.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But doing a degree on an album is dumb. And doing a degree in metal, if you want to go and waste your money, like I did a degree in popular music performance, and that was a waste of money. Seems.
I think the thing that I also, when I read the article, I was like, you can't tell any of these young people actual facts, because we've discussed it before. If you're learning something like the piano, there's hundreds of years of pedagogy behind learning the piano and understanding that instrument. But they're going to be teaching people how to growl And I'm sorry, but there's just not enough information over the long-term effects of doing these things taught by people who know what they're talking about. Like, some people even now say that Melissa Cross doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah.
And she was one of the OG ones to be like, well, if I teach fry and other sort of like cordial things to people, that'll stop them from hurting themselves. How can you offer a degree in something that has very little, if any? I mean, I've talked about it before on the Reaction channel. I don't actually think that vocals being taught can be taught as an absolute gospel science. They just can't, because there's always a singer who disproves everything you're trying to teach.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they going to teach growling to a bunch of kids?
Also, why are you teaching growling? Like, is metal not metal unless there's growling in it? Because, Ozzy Osbourne would like a word.
Britney Sleaze would like a word.
Rob Halford would like a word. Like, there's so many elements. Dio would like a word. There's so many areas in metal where growling is not appropriate.
Yeah.
It would be like on the same course being like, oh, you have to learn how to play guitar solos because it's not metal unless there are guitar solos. There's plenty of metal that doesn't have guitar solos.
Yeah.
Where it would be hugely inappropriate for there to be guitar solos on it. If you go back to like the first Slipknot album, there were guitar solos on that, and they were cut out during the recording or potentially the mixing process.
Oh.
That was the right decision. That music didn't need the guitar solos. And Slipknot, when they started putting guitar solos back in their music on their third record, they didn't suddenly become a better band because of it.
All the Slipknot that I've heard that I really enjoyed is the very electronic influenced Slipknot. I saw that and I was just like, well, damn. I'm just going to start teaching a whole degree in how to make souffle. No, that's an actual real thing.
But here's the sad thing about higher education, the trap, if you like, of higher education. Like, I have to keep saying that my degree was a waste of money because it's so important to me that people don't look at me and go, oh, well, Levi's successful in music and he did a degree in music, so, I should go and do a degree in music. You should never focus on the success stories in an industry to tell you whether or not it's a good use of your time and money. If you actually look at the failures, if you look at people that do a mechanical engineering degree, and then you look at how many of those people go on to be successful in their field, you're going to see a high rate of success. But if you look at a music degree, you are going to see an incredibly high rate of failure.
Yeah.
So education can be considered a gamble. Do I want to invest my money into this thing? And people that gamble without thinking about the odds of success are foolish. And to me, going and doing a degree in music is probably an even worse use of your time than taking your tuition fees and putting it all on a single number in roulette.
I have to agree, even though it depresses me, because my Masters, I stand by how wonderful the University of West of Scotland's Masters for Songwriting is, and it's ran by some really inspiring, incredibly intelligent people. But the fact was that the actual Masters itself was mostly academic, and it was mostly research, practice-led research and research-led practice. But my actual music degree was a sham. It was a piece of shit. It was out of a year of 100 people, 90 to 100 people, I literally can probably name on two hands the amount of people who still do music in some capacity, and not to a high capacity or a high standard. Yeah, it's like I say, it triggered me.
Well, you went to what I would confidently say was a bad music school.
It was a bad music school. My singing teacher couldn't actually confidently explain to me anything to do with vocals, and anything she did she couldn't replicate. So I'm like,
when most of your teachers are ex-students of the school that you're studying in, you've probably found yourself in a weird pyramid. Whereas my music school was full of amazing teachers, and I still keep in touch with a fair amount of those teachers. Like, they were great teachers. The school did bring in amazing teachers, but also at the end of the day, unfortunately, the teachers just have to teach the things that they have to teach in order for the university to validate the degree. And you could tell the teachers that were still punk about it, who were like, we still want to teach you the best things you can know. And you can also tell, they had given into the corporate side, and it was just like, this is just who I am now. I am an incompetent machine designed to take money from as many prospective students as possible, and I don't care about their success. I'm happy that I just have a cushy job. And so anyway, let's move on from talking about degrees.
Okay, so I think I have one. No, that was the last of the news.
Okay, so now let's move on and do the subject of the week, which is going to be metal. Black Sabbath, more specifically. People will fight me on this. Some people will tell you that Led Zeppelin were the inventors of heavy metal. And ultimately, when you're talking about things like this, you're talking about opinions. There's no heavy metal isn't an actual thing. It's a concept. It's not a tangible thing that you can touch. So it's impossible to say who first came up with the sound, because ultimately the sound is different things to different people.
Sure.
And you can look into the history of people describing music as it sounds like heavy metal crashing together. That's where the term comes from. For me, when I think of heavy metal, I think of there has to be a darkness to the thing. I mean, there has to be something very non-Christian about things. It has to have, I don't want to say it has to be satanic, but unless it has the dark themes in there, to me, it's not heavy metal. And I bring that distinction in here because when we talk about Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath, there were bands that had that dark theme before that, sure, but Black Sabbath were the first to become really popular with that thing. When you just think of the name Black Sabbath, it draws up imagery of the occult. Yeah?
Sure.
And to be fair, while Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin was really into the occult thing, Aleister Crowley was quite popular among artists during that time. Obviously, Ozzy would go on to release the song Mr. Crowley about Aleister Crowley, and Jimmy Page had a deep interest in that as well. But when I listen to Led Zeppelin, while they have songs that are heavy, and certainly songs you could consider to be metal, I just think of them as being a loud rock band.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing about Sabbath, as we start listening to the first album, Black Sabbath, from 1970, is that they also just sound like a loud rock band.
Okay. I think it's interesting that you're talking about these things. I've obviously heard some Black Sabbath before. It's not completely new to me. I think I wouldn't have, not because I think something alternative, but the fact that you're saying, when I think of heavy metal, there has to be a dark, not necessarily satanic, but potentially occult vibe going on. I always describe Black Sabbath as being a more blues-centric band. Yes. But now that you're mentioning all the occult stuff, well, like blues music, the association with the devil, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just, in my brain, there's like two little connectors going, but Melisa.
Well, it's interesting that you point that out because, yes, a lot of, if you think of like Robert Johnson singing Crossroads.
Yeah. It's about the devil.
Sure. So in that sense, there's a satanic or occult theme happening there. It is the combination of the two for me. It's you have to have the darkness, but the heavy sounds.
They're just
as well.
a loud blues band.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing that we are, by the end of this episode, absolutely, I'm sure, going to agree on, especially with the first Black Sabbath album. Prior to Black Sabbath being Black Sabbath, they were a blues band. They just got heavier as time went on. Now, a couple of things to bring up when it comes to Black Sabbath, and actually for listeners. So we are going to listen to these songs. And Mel is we're going to talk about them while we're listening to them, but we won't be posting that on YouTube for obvious copyright reasons. You will be able to hopefully find a full-length version of the podcast in other places if you do want to listen to us listening to music. I'm not crazy on that as content, just because, we are literally using copyrighted material that we don't own to bring people in, and it feels like an icky copyright thing, not from I'm scared of the law, but actually because I respect copyright law. As somebody who owns intellectual property, I wouldn't want people just, sitting on YouTube teaching my books to people, like reading them and teaching them to people.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I feel like I have got no horse in the race. I have a reaction channel. It does use other people's content, which I don't make any money directly from because, of course, they're all copyright claimed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in theory, we could do the same here, but that's not I would like it if I had a podcast that, paid for itself.
I mean, I would like anything on YouTube that wasn't like, I'm sorry, you piece of shit. Yeah. You're not going to get to monetize any of this. How about you go and fling yourself off a building? I would like at least one thing to not be that.
Yeah, so with Black Sabbath, obviously for me, it's about Ozzy Osbourne. It's about his voice. As with just about any band, it's about a singer's voice. And when you change a singer in a band, I can't think of really any examples where you change a singer in a band and it's still the same band.
It's not the same band.
To me.
It's not to me.
Yeah, I categorise things differently. And there are some bands that have had different singers over the years, and in my mind, you just have different eras of that band,
Mm-hmm.
but you would never mix and match the two. Some of my favourite bands, like metal bands, Symphony X, one of my favourite metal bands,
Oh
as
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
On their first record, they had a different singer, and I
Oh.
don't consider that to be Symphony X. It is, but I don't really consider it to be Symphony X.
I almost bought you a news thing about the lead singer of Dream Theater.
Dream Theater, yeah.
But then I was like, no, because he doesn't deserve for you to drag him through the mud. He's been through enough.
Yeah.
Everyone comes to the comments, they're like, he had food poisoning, leave him alone.
His voice drags himself through the mud.
Oh,
enough,
come on.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so Ozzy Osbourne, very, very important to me that Ozzy Osbourne is involved in Black Sabbath. But at the same time, you can't downplay Tony Iommi, their guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
His influence on their sound came largely...
He only had 3 fingers.
No, he didn't only have 3 fingers. He had a work accident. I believe it was the day he was quitting his job to do the band, where he severed the tips of his fingers off.
Oh, poor Tommy. Tony.
Yeah. So he severed the tips of his fingers off. Like there's such a song. There's poor, and then saying the wrong name of the person. Nothing.
Barbara.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Compose yourself.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, he severed the tips of his fingers off,
Uh-huh.
and for many people they would be like, "Oh, I can't really play the guitar anymore." But what Tony did was, or Tommy, was he fashioned false fingertips out of, I believe it was leather.
I'm sorry, this is only getting funnier, but continue. I'm not laughing.
Sure.
I am laughing, but
But because of that, playing the guitar, as you know, playing the guitar can be quite intense on your fingers.
So he made them out of leather, but did he have to
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did he have to fill them? Would he?
So he didn't make literal fingers. He made covers for for his fingers.
Okay,
In fact,
so he's not like.
I'll bring a picture up for you.
Yeah. So it's not because I was like, is he trying to get the same length again?
He didn't sever, whole hand. It wasn't Django or any. Well,
okay.
Django actually had the fingers. They were just burned.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
I
these are
couldn't
his
picture
actual
it.
fingers.
Oh, okay.
They're not. It's not the end of the world, but it certainly could get in the way of your playing. So
Yeah.
he fashioned these
That's
things.
cool as shit.
Yeah, and it's said, I'm sure by him, but obviously many other people, I was just saying it there, you play guitar yourself,
Yeah.
so you know that it's very labour intensive on your
yeah.
fingers. His fingers were sore, even with his covers on. So
that's
one of the things he did in order to help himself in playing the guitar,
Drugs, yo.
probably drugs, but no, he would tune his guitar down so the strings were slacker, so it was easier on his fingers. And part of that detuning thing gives you a heavy, really heavy sound. So
art of necessity.
yeah, and it's funny, people tell that story as though it's like fact, but actually when you listen to a lot of the first Black Sabbath records, it actually isn't detuned. It's later on that the detuning becomes a part of the sound. But yeah, I think that's obviously important. Yeah, so we are going to do 2 things. One is listen to music, and 2 is over the course of the week, Mel is going to listen to more Black Sabbath and create a little playlist of music that she enjoyed, which she will share with you on socials, so you can listen to the same music that Mel had listened to.
Yeah, I'll put it on my community page on my YouTube channel.
So we're going to start out by listening to the title track, the first track from the album Black Sabbath. I will make no comment. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, I liked it. It is very slow, but it is really cool. And when you think that it was 1970, that is super cool.
Of course, it came out in early 1970, I think February 1970. So chances are this was written in the late 60s.
Which is so cool. When you think about the birth of genres all the time, you just think, how did it occur to you? I mean, granted, we can't lay every piece of metal music that's ever been made at Black Sabbath store, because I think there seems to be, in my opinion, it is just my opinion, two main influences in the foundations of all metal, and that is metal that is derived from blues and metal that is derived from classical music. I mean, it's technically all from blues because it's guitar-based music, but you know what I mean.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, yeah.
It's just, it's impressive that these 4 kids from Birmingham, who probably, are they from very working class backgrounds?
Oh, yeah.
Probably didn't have 2 halfpennies to rub together.
No.
We're just like, you know what I love? Hammer House of Horror movies. Let's make a soundtrack to that.
the Black Sabbath name was taken from a film that I want to say Geezer Butler saw a poster for and thought that's a really cool name.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath.
I feel that.
Yeah. So I'm going to play a couple more things. We're not going to listen to the whole record, but it's a short record and, well worth checking out if you're interested in metal music and your history, where it came from. This is a good starting point. Second track on the album is The Wizard, and this is one of the songs that I do kind of like a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There's some harmonica in it, and because, again, they were just a blues band.
Yeah.
With dark themes.
But then blues always has dark themes.
Yeah. Well,
disillusionment, the devil, disenfranchisement, slavery. There was always dark themes in blues music.
Early blues has a lot of, making a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
But as blues developed, blues music feels more about my struggles. Let me tell you about my struggles.
The devil, the devil, God, real problems. Then ain't nobody seen the trouble I've seen. Then it just became about guitar solos.
Yes.
And jamming.
And this isn't that. This is never my troubles. I mean, I say that, Evil Woman, Don't Play Your Games With Me is on this record. But,
Woke up this morning, do-do-do-do-do.
Yes.
Evil Woman, Don't Play Your Games With Me.
Now, I don't know who was writing the lyrics for Sabbath in this early point. Ozzy, I know Ozzy was writing melodies. He wasn't writing lyrics.
Right.
I remember hearing this for the first time and hearing that lyric. Misty morning, clouds in the sky, without warning, a wizard walks by. And I just burst out laughing at that line.
The Wizard and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I was sort of thinking about when Ozzy was singing is that you obviously, everyone does that thing with me on the channel where they go, well, you're Scottish, why do you sing with an American accent? And it's like, well, because all of the music that I consumed and grew up with and I'm influenced by is sung by American artists. So Ozzy singing with an American accent. It's not a good American accent, but it is one. So again, I think the whole like blues influence thing is very American. It's very sort of like American vowels, and then it's like it feels very theatre to me.
Yeah.
A wizard, you're not really playing your own accent.
Yep.
Did any of that make sense? I feel like that made sense.
Okay, so the most popular song on this album, based on Spotify plays, is NIB, for good reason. So let's take a listen to NIB. If I was alive in 1970, which of course I wasn't, you were.
One of us looks older than the other.
One of us does.
One of us does.
Yeah. So if I was around in 1970, I could imagine hearing this song and being like, oh, this is cool. This shows promise. The first song, Black Sabbath, I'd be like, a bit slow. Don't even know if I make it to the end. The Wizard, I'm like, oh, this is a cool blues song. I skipped over Behind the Wall of Sleep. But when NIB happens, it's like, oh, I want to hear more from this band.
Sure. I think it's cool, it's dark, it's a bit weird. Some of the melody lines are really fun. And I think Ozzy, I saw some footage of Ozzy performing when he was younger, and it was a lot more feral and less theatrical, and a lot more just enjoying the music. But even if you can't get on board with his performance side of things, his voice was always kind of good. And it's not for everyone because, of course, he does sing through his mask, and that can have nasality that a lot of people don't like. But he had a great range, and yeah.
So I'm going to move on now. The interesting thing for me about Sabbath is, like I say, that first album came out in 1970, and we are so used to now waiting years and years and years for a band that they release an album, then they tour and tour and tour and tour, then they take a break and then release another album. Oh no, Sabbath were right back on it in 1970 again. Their second album also came out in 1970. I think over a 4-year period they released 6 albums.
Get fucked.
Feels about right. We'll check the numbers on that. But and this early period of Sabbath for me is like really, really cool and important. The second album, Paranoid, named after the popular song Paranoid, was a huge hit. And it is a metric shit ton better than that first record. I think that for me, the thing that's really cool is it reminds me of a time, or a better way of putting it, paints a picture of a time where a group of friends would have been excited that the second Black Sabbath album is coming out.
Sure.
And you all would have sat round a record player and put it on and listened to it as a group. And most people would have smoked a lot of weed doing it.
Weed if you're lucky. I was just thinking though as well, at what point, so at this point, do they have a record label involved?
Yeah,
Are they still doing, okay.
Oh, there's no such thing. I could be wrong on that, but I just don't think there's such a thing as in 1970 independent releasing of music.
Okay.
It's just, especially for a working class band like this.
Especially for a band that have got a song on their album called Rat Salad. That's a great name.
Yeah, okay. When it comes to Paranoid, there are a lot of popular songs on here. War Pigs, very popular. Paranoid, very popular. People do play Planet Caravan. Iron Man, of course, huge. Electric Funeral. Yeah, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, not so much. And then Fairies Wear Boots, again, another one that I quite like. So we'll just listen to some of this and see how the band's sound has changed.
Sure. Yeah, Ozzy's voice just sounds so much better in this one because it's quite a big difference from the first one. Also, when he's up doing da ba 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 ba, and at the end of the first verse, it's like no, it just all sounds much more open and less masky. Like he's not as nasal as he was the last time. Yeah. And I think that's some of the other live stuff that I saw from that period when they were doing things like War Pigs. I was like, oh, Ozzy's really, he's opening up.
Yeah. Okay, so next up would be Paranoid, of course. I'm sure you know this one.
Oh, not a ton of, but a bunch of effects on it. So there's a little reverb and delay to make him sound sort of like spooky.
Yep. Iron Man, of course.
Yeah.
Another belter. Classic riff in this one.
Yeah, and that's the first one. I maybe not in previous because obviously we've not listened to Planet Caravan, but with the double vocals as well because he does that all the time now, or at least he has in most of the other things that I've heard Ozzy do. He's doubled his vocals in unison.
Yeah, which is always a bold move. I was always told not to do it because two voices never sound the same. Two voices singing the same reason we don't double our lead guitar parts.
Sure.
Because it doesn't. You get nature's chorus when you double your lead parts, and it was a choice. They were clearly experimenting with things, and that's fine. And lastly, from this record, like I say, I quite like Fairies Wear Boots.
Great title.
Great title. So I said while listening to that, if I'd listened to this when I was a kid, it would make me want to play the drums.
Sure.
It feels so fair in Sabbath. It's like everyone gets to play, and often in a lot of metal, it feels like your drummer has to play the role of a drum machine.
Sure.
But in this, he gets sections where he gets to play, and that to me that's really cool.
And also, it doesn't feel super intense and over the top, and like sometimes with these things, you're just like, shut up. Whereas with you don't feel it with that.
So yeah, that's 1970. In 1971, they released the album Master of Reality. Now at this point, they know what it is they're doing. They know what their sound is, and they exploit it. It actually has my favourite Sabbath song on it, which is Children of the Grave, which is a bit of a cliche because evidently it's the most popular song on the album.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Sweet Leaf. Yeah, this shows what they knew what they were doing at this point.
Okay.
So when I listen to that, it's like the weight and power when the bass guitar and the guitar, loads of fuzz on them, and they try and become one unit. It just creates that heavy.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Ozzy might be doubled and it might sound different. He might be centered. He's still, he's probably out of everybody in the band, still doing roughly the same thing as when they started, which is to say, blues singing. Because, he's doing all of that. Ba, 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 ba. That's all just
blues phrasing. Yeah, because the thing that we think of as metal vocals didn't exist yet.
No. Or maybe it did and we just don't know it.
Oh, good point. Maybe it did and it just wasn't popular. There probably were people shouting into
maybe there's like
microphones.
a I don't know, a band from Argentina, even, that were like, oh.
Okay, so my favourite, Children of the Grave.
Okay.
I love this track. There's a guitar solo and everything, but I really like that tune.
Sure.
It grooves really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I won't make you listen to a whole bunch more, but I do think Volume 4 is well worth listening to. It contains the song Snowblind, which is beautiful. It also contains Changes, which
Changes,
which Ozzy would go on to cover with Kelly Osbourne.
I
remember
actually
that?
Yes, I do remember that. I was sentient, more than sentient, when the Osbournes had their own TV show.
In your listening of
Yes.
these, outside of the podcast,
Yes.
do give these albums a listen. Volume 4 is great, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath,
Sure.
which came out in 73. Sabbath Bloody
A
Sabbath.
national acrobat. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I want to put this on, but as we're not sharing the
Yeah.
music on YouTube anyway, it doesn't feel like it makes that much of a difference.
Sure.
But Sabbath Bloody Sabbath has jazz in it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff in
When you say jazz,
seventh chords.
okay.
I mean, like I say, I do feel that a lot of that the drumming is jazz drumming on the Sabbath stuff, which is totally different from like metal drumming as an approach. Very, very different. But yeah, so that's the early years of Black Sabbath, 1970 through 1973.
Mm-hmm.
Black Sabbath, Paranoid, Master of Reality, Volume 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Over a 3-year period from 1970 to 1973, 5 records.
From what we've listened to so far,
Uh-huh.
which you'll be able to find on Patreonage of some description. Yeah, I do think that it's the very first album felt like they were not winging it, but it felt very ropey at points, the bits that we heard. Not in the sense that it was bad, just that it felt a little bit more raw and sort of not arranged in a way that was considerate of a lot of things. But then immediately when you go to Paranoid, is it Paranoid?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're already like, okay, so we're going to do this and we're going to have this space here. And yeah, and Ozzy's voice was immediately on the up from that one onwards. Not that it was bad in the first one.
Yeah, a very cool band, very important band, very influential band. And we we're going to come back next week and talk about things that aren't Black Sabbath, but we will open up by letting you know what Mel learned about them. And we should also throw this out there. The legacy of Sabbath is still alive and strong. We have tickets in March to go and see Zach Sabbath.
We do.
A whole night of
God.
Zach Wilde playing Black Sabbath music.
I'm fine with it. I'll be fine.
Yeah, but you'll get to hang out with Zach after the show.
That's true. I'm very excited. I mean, I'm also slightly afraid. Like, what kind of person is he?
Sober, so not as wild as he used to be.
Okay. That's fine.
Zach, not so wild.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll
Yeah.
probably film some stuff from it
We'll definitely film some
because
stuff
that would
from
be
it.
fun. Okay, so before we get to the end,
Sure.
I feel like we should always end the podcast because, of course, people keep saying, where's Metalhead Musings? We really like Metalhead Musings. And I like Metalhead Musings too, but sometimes it gets to the point where I'm like, oh, I need some of these to build up because there's so many amazing comments and it's hard to get through them all. But I have 2 comments locked and loaded for you.
Okay.
One of them is, of course, a rude one because I think everyone quite enjoys me doing the rude ones. And one of them is a very thoughtful one done by a regular commenter. So let me get the rude one first. And I'm not going to react to the rude one. I'll let you
Do I
react.
get to react to the rude
You
one?
react because I will react to it, but you react to it first.
Okay.
As my partner, as someone who cares about me,
As someone romantically linked to me?
as romantically linked but never pushed. He went to get the door. Thank God he's gone. So as I said, the first one,
Mhm.
chaos energy. It's mild sauce, but I still want to hear what your reaction would be. This is from, and also I will not block out names. We've had this discussion before. No, if you're brave and bold enough to go publicly and say things to me, tough shit, Barbara. Simon Slater says, it's bad enough when men use bad language, but women, it's foul. Also, please do not say, oh my God. Say, oh my gosh.
How about you suck my big fat dick, Simon?
This is the mania that I live in.
Is that rude words? Like dick?
I think his
Suck my Richard.
I think his
Should get that on a shirt.
suck my Richard.
I have been thinking about how we can make merchandise for the podcast. Suck my Richard seems like a...
Yes, Simon. How about you go and suck a bag of Richards?
It's Suck a bag of Richards is even better. So I do hate comments like that because I know that your feminism is going to make you do it, like view it in a certain way, and I think comments like that for people that don't consider themselves a feminist would look at that and be like, well, why do we hold women to a different standard than men?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, but
it's worse when women do it, apparently.
Well, because women a lot of time are held to a higher moral standard when it comes to certain behaviours. Like when they talk about things like murdering and child abuse, and it's always like, oh, well, it was terrible, and you think it's bad enough when a man does it, but when a woman, you're like, how could you do that as a mother? And like, bleh. But that's not the thing that got me. It was please don't say, oh my God, say, oh my gosh. What? You're on the internet now, Mabel. I can't be the only piece of content you've consumed where someone has said, oh my God.
I guess I think of it from a perspective of like, how truly terrifying must the outside world be to you on a day-to-day basis if hearing, oh my God,
triggered you,
upset you?
Can you imagine if they just went into the butcher and the butcher said, sausage today? You cunt. I'll edit that out.
I think it's our duty to send this man a postcard every day that just says cunt on it. But he'd probably take no issue with that because it's not.
I think he might.
It's not blasphemous.
Do you think?
I don't know.
I could think of ways to make it blasphemous.
Well, sure. I don't know what his issue is other than evidently being dropped on his head as a child. What else you got for me?
Okay, so that was the silly one. I like a little silly one. But this one is from a very beloved commenter, which I won't use his real name. It's I'm crazed and confused because he doesn't use his real name on the internet, which is fair enough. He said...
That's a Zeppelin reference.
Ah, yeah, of course.
Dazed and confused.
So he actually commented on our Sting video for the podcast.
I see.
And he was suggesting things that we might want to talk about. Well, one thing that he said was, is music becoming simple internet content creation where you produce what algorithms of YouTube, Spotify and that want? I've paraphrased that. Is it similar for clickbait? So basically, clickbaiting is the new creativity.
Wow.
I don't think he was coming for me in that, but even if he was, I'd be like,
it's a really deep question that we should have brought up at the start of the podcast.
Oh.
I'd not really considered. I mean, I don't really create anymore because I hate where the music industry is, and I hate when I launched the Guitar Souls initially. The first meme post I made was a picture of me when I got my first set of AirPods. The meme was a picture of me with the big thumbs up, and it's like, yeah, just got my $200 headphones so I can listen to music that I wouldn't even pay $1 for. Like, it's so toast music in general. Like, I would love it if everybody who listened to this and enjoyed it joined Mel's Patreon or supported us financially in some way, shape or form. But we get so much content for free that we put no value in content.
Yeah.
And I hate banging that drum. I'm incredibly lucky that I get as much financial support as I do from as many people as I do. Considerably more people consume my content than support it. And that's just the way it is. I guess to answer the question, it depends if you're looking for success or happiness. You could make content for the algorithm for success. But if you want to make art, then that's why my channel isn't more successful, because I make the shit I want to make, not the shit that people want to watch. And I'm happy to find the people who want to watch the things I want to make. That's cooler to me than just making the things that people want to watch.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of how I tried to answer this commenter's question, not really a question, more just posing an idea that we can discuss, is that, I am a musician. I would much rather be just creating art and nothing else, but I'm not foolish enough to believe that anyone values that anymore. And the worst of it is, I know this commenter would 100% spend big bucks on a band's merchandise that he loved or a band's tickets that he loved, or blah blah blah, because he actually cares about art. But the problem is, he's one in an ocean of other people who don't.
Yeah.
So I do have to do things like content creation, and that's not something that I ever thought I would do or that I would even enjoy. Honestly, I've grown to love it, and more so grown to enjoy meeting the people that I have between, people like Frog and Owl and all these people that I chat to regularly. So it isn't a nice thing, but yeah, I think we're just at that place now where art as a whole is just completely devalued through subscriptions and the rest of it. And we can either choose to
But
go,
subscribe to our Patreon.
but we can either choose to just not make art anymore and then concede that that's just the way it is, or we can do both, which is exhausting and not fair. It's not cricket, but it's just the way it is. And how do you break out of that? I don't know.
I guess like the deep thing is like, why do we make art?
Because there's something that we desperately have to say and we need to connect with another human with, and it's not something we can merely say through words, and it's not someone we connect with.
But it could be something you say through words, like poetry. What?
Poetry is art. I don't understand it, but it is art.
Sure. Just because like when you said connecting with people, like I understood that, and I'm like, yeah, I do get that. And we've been lucky enough just in the last 6 months, you know, because of content creation, we've been to Tennessee for work, and we've got to meet. You've got to sing for Steve Morse and Andy Timmons, who said you were amazing. Steve
Morse said that I was amazing and shook my hand and then agreed with Andy Timmons. Him and Andy both looked at each other and went, amazing. I was like, ah.
So, you know, that's a consequence of content creation rather than the creation of art. But also at the same time, you know, Chris, who I'm sure is listening to this, we got to hang out with Chris and go out for a lovely meal with Chris. Seth, we met up with Seth and had a lovely dinner with Seth.
And they're lovely, lovely wives.
Yeah, I get to meet a lot of people through my content creation. And that is, I don't want to say it's a substitute for the art, but it's like, that is the payoff now. That is the reward. That is the thing that you do it for. In the same way that people work 9 to 5 jobs so they get to go on their holiday or so they can have a nice Christmas or whatever it is. Like the content creation, I'm passionate about it. I like making content, but I do it for the payoff. And the payoff, even if the reward isn't deeply financially rewarding, it is. If I could like click my fingers, because we're going to watch the Royal Rumble later. If I could click my fingers and have 2 more people that I've met online because of content creation in our living room with us tonight to watch that, then I'd be super for that, right?
Yeah.
Because the internet is an awesome place where you get to meet people from different walks of life who you share interests with. And we're lucky that Black Sabbath were 4 people that lived in Birmingham who had a shared interest and passion. But it's hard to find people that have an actual interest and shared passion with you. We, in the last couple of years, got really into playing board games. And none of my group of friends like playing board games. So I've had to find an entirely new group of people to play board games with. But because of the internet, we can have these interests and connections with people. That's why you make the content. Well, we're doing it for the right reasons. There's a lot of people that just do it because, you know, chase the money, make the money. They do make content for the algorithm, but I don't want to be that.
I do. I think there's people who make content for the algorithm because they're looking to make loads and loads of money, or at the very least get loads and loads of clout. And then there's people like you and I speak for myself on this part, where it is I make content. It is content that is fun to make, and I meet nice people through it. But my main goal is that I would like to make art that people might like in the background. Also to meet at least one other person who likes Tom Waits. Have you met them? I don't know. I'm the only one, I feel.
I want to make things that I'm proud of.
Sames.
And we're just proud of different things. Am I proud of my music that you can go and listen to on Spotify? Yeah. But I'm more proud of my books.
Sure.
Not because they're successful, but because, like all the video content that I'm filming now for the new website, like I'm doing it to the best of my ability because I want to be proud. I want it to be content that outlasts me.
Sure.
Material that people can use for years and years to come. That's a cool feeling. And there are, for the commenter that wrote it, there are lots of people that are just going to chase the algorithm, but we'll never be that.
No, I can't because I don't understand it. I constantly make things and I'm like, people are asking me questions in the comments about it and I'm like, oh, I just went on my homepage and I was like, that looks interesting, let's talk about that. Well, thank you very much everyone for coming along and tuning in to the first episode of Does Metal Have Soul? We will be back again, very excited. Comment below of what you think we should be discussing. Comment below if you want to be included in the Metalhead Musings that are going to happen at the end of the show.
Beginning of the show.
Beginning of the show. From now henceforth, the business person manager has decided.
Well, you got to worry about that algorithm.
That's true.
You know, don't front load your content with all the good stuff at the start.
This is why I'll never be good at algorithm stuff. Do.
Yeah. This is a work in progress.
Yeah.
We are still growing with this and working out how to best deliver this content to you guys and what's going to resonate with you guys the most, which I know is ironic based on what we've just talked about, making content for us.
Yeah. But what do you want?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I want to go and get some food. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Bye. Love you.
Laters.